Well, it's my pleasure now to welcome Will Ford, our Prince George's County editor, as well as we mentioned before, the state delegate from Maryland. I'm having a hard time this morning, Will. So I'm glad you're going to take over this portion of the show. And we're so glad to have Delegate Jazz Lewis with us. We've had a great little intro conversation, but I'm glad you're here to carry on the conversation. So it's all yours.
Thank you. Delegate Lewis, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing just fine. Good to talk with you, Will. And thank you, Denise, for having me on.
All right. Hey, before we chat, man, about police reform in Maryland, you and I chatted some Wednesday about those pro-Trump supporters, AKA domestic terrorists that stormed the Capitol. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, you work for House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. You weren't in D.C. that day, but home working. But your colleagues were there in the Capitol. How were they and Congressman Hoyer doing?
They're a bit shaken up. Congressman Hoyer is doing well. He's in the line of succession for congressional leadership. So along with the other leaders such as Pelosi, Schumer, McConnell, et cetera, they were taken to a non-disclosed location. But their staffs weren't a part of that, right? So we had a number of junior staffers, people who were 21, 22, 25 years old that had to barricade essentially within a large closet inside the office as they heard people rampaging around them. And it was terrifying for them. I felt, my wife and I recently had a baby. So because of little Miguel, I had the fortune of working from home. I feel a little bit of guilt because many of the younger ones hadn't experienced, anything like that before. And they were, just imagine hiding in a large closet with a couple of your coworkers while you hear people trash your workplace and threaten violence against you because of who you work for and what you believe. The anger is going to stick with me for the people who incited this, for the Capitol Police for not stopping it before it got too far. Though I do wish my condolences on the officer who passed away and to his family, but they shouldn't have been in that position.
From what you heard and read about the storming on the Capitol by these domestic terrorists, did it show you any necessary steps to implement police reform in Maryland as a member of the House Judiciary Committee?
Yeah, I would say first, we need to take domestic terrorism serious in this country. We all know that had the Black Lives Matter movement planned a similar protest that had people walking over to the steps of the Capitol, the response would have been very different, right? The response would have been very different. That being said, we need police reform in this country. We need policing that is built on people, caring about people, protecting people, and accountable ultimately to the people. In Maryland, we've had a number of various reports at the county level here in Prince George's. Many of the schools themselves, University of Maryland, Bowie State, are doing their own thing. But statewide, we had a work group that is reviewing this. And I think the time is now. They reviewed a number of things that, I'm going to try to briefly cover as much as possible to change, particularly one, I'm going to start with use of body-worn cameras. We have a recommendation that all police departments in the state of Maryland utilize body-worn cameras by 2025. There will be funding to correspond with that. We want to establish statewide use of force statutes so that, officers clearly know what is not okay. We're going to have a duty to intervene. So if you see an officer doing something that is beyond the use of force statute and you don't intervene to stop it, then you may be held accountable. We know the only way we can stop police violence, state-sanctioned violence against communities, is if police change their behavior and officers begin speaking up. We're going to have independent review and accountability, so you won't have the same department holding each other accountable, because we've seen that has not stopped the violence against communities at all. We're going to prohibit chokeholds and other violent acts like that. banning no-knock warrants, prohibiting the acquisition of surplus armored and military-grade equipment, because the streets of Baltimore, the streets of Capitol Heights is not Fallujah, and shouldn't be treated as if it is. A number of other things. We're going to make sure that in collective bargaining for the police unions, that disciplinary actions is not a part of it. You know, you can argue over overtime pay and things like that, but you're not going to argue away accountability when these folks are empowered so much. We're going to require periodic mental health assessments and screenings, you know, and just from top to bottom, we're planning to change the system. We're going to repeal the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights. That is a special protection that law enforcement in Maryland has against the people. When we all know a Bill of Rights is supposed to be a special protection that the people have against their government. So many changes from top to bottom.
And let our viewers know, in terms of the district you represent and some of the communities that you represent, how police reform will benefit them.
So I represent the 24th Legislative District in Prince George's County. I'm a state official, so I report to Annapolis as opposed to Upper Marlboro. My district includes neighborhoods and towns such as Glendale, Fairwood, Bowie, Largo, Lake Arbor, Glenarden, Seat Pleasant, Landover, Fairmont Heights, Capitol Heights, and Suitland as well. So the southern tip of my district is Iverson Mall, you know, and Suitland High School with the Rams, and the northern tip is just south of NASA. So it's a very diverse community. But for anyone who's from here, you know, once you cross that Beltway line, it's the inner Beltway, the police presence is a lot higher, you know. So you know, these changes are going to be critically important for our communities.
And I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I want to just touch on with you real quick. Any local legislation you're working on that affecting Prince George's County? For instance, that you and I talked about the alcohol bill. What's that bill number? And summarize that one, because you were very amped about that one.
Yes, that's PG 307-21. It's a county delegation bill that essentially what it'll do is that everyone who lives in Prince George's County or is driven through Prince George's County, you can see the drive-through liquor stores and the like. You tend to only see them in the inner Beltway. What we've seen is that the concentration of liquor stores, not liquor stores in and of themselves, but the concentration of liquor stores close together increases alcoholism, increases crime, increases overdoses, and the like. So my bill is to break up the concentration of these stores. Right now, by law, a store can't relocate to another part of the county if they wanted to. So let's say Glendale has a new community growing up. A store can't relocate there if they wanted to. My bill would allow them to do so. The other thing, when we were reviewing the density, we saw that the same places where we had alcohol density, we also had food deserts, coincidentally. So we're going to create some competition for them. We're going to incentivize grocery stores that move into food deserts exclusively, so not everywhere, but grocery stores that move into food deserts can sell beer and wine, because that'll be an added tool to allow us to track them to where we need them to go. But it'll create competition for these this oversaturation that we have to encourage them to move elsewhere. And I think that's going to be a big help for food equity, which is critically important to the Central Avenue corridor in my district, and Seat Pleasant, and Landover, and Capitol Heights. But breaking up that density will also help with economic development, because, you know, a lot of people who want to buy homes don't want to see that blight.
I got to get you to chat about Kernwin. That's, you know, that's a big deal in Maryland. Everyone's talking about, but summarize what you see for this particular session. So
we are going to override Kernwin. I think there might be some modest changes to it, just given our current economy. For those who aren't familiar, the Kernwin Commission was a 3-year study that showed how we can make the best world-class education system across the state as possible. It required $4 billion investments. Doing so would have every teacher start off making $60,000 a year. But then if you move into our schools in at-risk neighborhoods, you would start off making $75,000 to $77,000. All right, we're trying to put our money where our mouth is. We have to do this. I think this will be critically important to a lot of the communities that border DC line in my district. And we made a promise in the last election that we were going to get this done, and we're still going to.
And you touched on, in terms of outline a few of the benefits for schools in the 24th district that do border the district and in more urban settings.
Like Josephina Woods, I mean, Suitland High School, like I referenced Central High School, Fairmont Heights, all these schools I think would benefit. One of the other things that it changes is that essentially through the Kernwin Commission, students would effectively finish high school in 10th grade. In the last 2 years, they would either be transitioning in college prep work, so they wouldn't have to do remedial work when they get there, or they'll get to try on a number of trades, which include traditional trades such as barbering or electrician work, but also more new trades like the clean energy industry and things like that, so that the high school diploma meant something again. I think that's going to be really important. Not everyone who's graduating from high school is planning to go to college, either at all or immediately, but they need to be able to get gainful employment and earn income to take care of their family. And I think, what we've seen from this pandemic is that those who wealth-wise were well-resourced were the ones who were able to make it out of it okay. We have to, make sure these inequities are addressed throughout our county.
And just keep it in terms of education, HBCU, about that bill. Please talk a little bit about that.
So we're going to override the governor's veto of the HBCU bill. We had a bill to dedicate $577 million over 10 years to our 4 HBCUs in the state of Maryland that had been chronically underfunded and proven in court. This was a major priority of the Legislative Black Caucus, of our speaker, Adrian Jones, and mine as well. We're going to make sure that gets done.
And any other final words in terms of or summarizing what you're hoping for this session, and especially how different it'll be doing a lot of stuff virtually?
I think actually as working virtual is an opportunity for more inclusion for the community, because before you had to drive down to Annapolis. And I think that was prohibitive for a lot of people who don't have a car or can't take off of work. Now, because we can work virtually, I think you can sign up to testify from the convenience of your own home or from your workplace and just, go into the bathroom or into a closet or something like that to testify and participate in the process. It will be different. It's going to slow some things down. I just ask for people to bear with us and be patient because none of us have been through a pandemic before. So we're all trying to do our best.
Thank you, Delegate Lewis. Appreciate it, my man. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.